Good morning, Helen.
Morning.
Thank you for joining us. I wonder if we can begin just by asking you what your role is at Zoom, and then what your career path was that got you there, just before we go into the main questions.
Yeah, sure, no problem. So my name is Helen Hawthorn. I head up the solution engineering team at Zoom for EMEA, so most of the European countries and then out into the Middle East. How did I get here? Well, I started off at BT actually, so I was a graduate at BT.
Yeah.
And I started there as a solution engineer. Back in the day of telephony, so Nortel Meridians and networking, quickly introduced to Cisco IP telephony.
Oh.
And as soon as I saw IP telephony, my love of UCAS kind of started.
Yeah.
I stayed there for a little bit, moved around a few companies, kind of entering it into a management role. That took me to Insight, which is an American DMR. They were entering into the world of solutions, and so I built out their solution engineering team there. And then moved over to Polycom. Polycom, hardware partner, video, moving away from kind of my Cisco roots that everyone was a little bit surprised at, if I'm honest. Moved into Polycom, started to open up my world to Microsoft and Google and various others that were using their technology. I was there for a few years, entered into heading up their EMEA team. While I was there, introduced to Zoom, found a technology that I absolutely loved. I think the phrase "it just works" sprung to mind. It was kind of like picking up an Apple device for the first time, if I'm honest with you. It was like, geez, this stuff really does just work. And then 2.5 years ago, moved into Zoom. So actually just after the boom. So it was just after the boom happened, during that COVID time where Zoom became a little bit of a verb.
Yeah.
And I picked up a team of around about, there was about 10 SEs in Europe at the time. Of course, that was nowhere near enough with the way that things had exploded. So spent the first year there really building out the team, making sure that we had enough resources across all the different countries that we were covering. And then for the last year, it was really kind of about getting them up to speed. We went from video to voice to contact center. I'm sure we'll talk about a little bit about that. So yeah, so that's me and how I got here.
Fantastic, thank you. It's some interesting names in there, like Cisco and Polycom. Perhaps we could move on to, what are you most excited about now? When people come to see you here at the show, what's the thing that you're talking to them about that you think is really interesting?
Oh, geez, a lot. So people come over, generally they think Zoom, they think meetings.
Right.
That's what they're thinking about. So sitting down with some of our actually existing customers and then new people that are coming up to the stand and really talking them through the whole portfolio and how we can help them in their organisation. What I'm excited about is I've worked from home since day dot. I joined BT, they handed me a laptop, they said, see you later, go home. However, that wasn't the way for most of these organisations, right? A lot of that happened when COVID hit. So when people are coming over and they're saying, okay, we've got employees now that are working from home, coming into the office, the most exciting thing is really showing them how employees can work effectively from home and on the road, wherever they are. And whether that's talking about meetings, whether that's talking about voice, so, Zoom voice, some of our integrations into their own applications, we've really gone. Our founder is a developer, right? So API, SDKs directly into the software that they're using. It's been a bit of an eye-opener for some of them. And then into contact center. And then I think the most exciting thing for most of the people coming over is they're seeing our Zoom events platform, where you're kind of doing hybrid and all that kind of stuff. And they're seeing what we're doing on the stand and kind of like, we didn't realize you're doing this. So to say what one thing is quite hard to kind of focus down on, because there's so many different areas. And then not forgetting Zoom rooms, but it's a mainstay of what we do. So
that's the mainstay. But it's interesting. This is an AV integration show, so a little bit different from others. And it's the events you're saying that people are really catching on to.
I think it's it's something that people didn't know us for. They didn't realise that we did this whole events platform. I think when they saw it, they thought it was more about, okay, so it's webinar at home and if you're in person, but actually it's way more than that, right? We're really integrating with a lot of the stuff that you're using here today. And really going into that kind of broadcast type area of being able to bring all of the Zoom technology into that environment, which has been really exciting.
And is the events platform for use by rental and staging companies, or is it for use by AV integrators or in-house teams?
Across the board is what we're finding. We also have our own in-house Zoom events. So if you've got companies that are looking on to put on their own sales kickoffs or customer events, we can actually come in and actually our professional services arm come in and run the whole show for you, whatever that may be, down to green rooms out the back, and it's really good fun.
So you can, it's almost like you do it as a service.
Correct. Yeah.
Right. It's interesting because when I think of Zoom expanding, I think of, the telephony and the office applications, and not so much because you think, Zoom, it's meetings, it's the office. You don't necessarily think events.
I think some of our best successes, actually, so putting Zoom events to one side, I think some of our best successes are actually business to consumer.
Really?
If you really think about where we went with COVID, right, where everybody out there knows Zoom, right, and why did they choose it? They chose it because it just worked, right? They tried to get onto other platforms, potentially they didn't work as well. They switched on Zoom and they didn't have any issues. And so where we're finding a lot of conversations is where companies are using it to get to their consumers, to get to their customers.
Right.
And then, as I said, integrate it into their websites or into the applications, their apps that they're using to their consumers. Of course, we do a lot of internal stuff as well in their own businesses, but the click has been, okay, we can really start talking to our customers. The contact center platform, let's talk to them eye to eye. People expect video now, especially as those generations that are now used to using. My daughter finds it strange picking up a phone.
Really?
Yeah, she doesn't want to pick up a phone. She wants to see you. She wants to see what you're looking like. We went into avatars, which I, at the time, thought, what's that all about? I'm old, right? So I'm like,
me too. So I haven't tried them.
But you know what? They love them, right? People that are coming into it. And it kind of lends into that kind of Zoom fatigue thing where people are saying, I don't want to always be on video. Well, what you're finding is people are using those avatars instead of having to be on video. And some of the stuff that we've got going on with expressions and everything else is pretty cool. So yes, lots to be excited about, as you can tell, because I'm kind of pinging.
That's good. So I'm thinking now, how much progress do you think there's actually been in the technology? Because I think of Zoom as a leader. I remember there was a time where other people were struggling to work across 2 screens, but Zoom was working across 3.
Yeah.
I can think of, when you think of intelligent cameras, Zoom was ahead of other people, I think still is, in terms of what it can support. Mm-hmm. How much progress do you think we've made in terms of what we can offer people in the time that you've been in your role at Zoom?
I've been in the industry for a long time. I am blown away about how quickly we've advanced. And that does come down to, and I say it again, right? So we have a developer that's the founder of our business, and he listens constantly. It is the biggest differentiator I've found is that it's not a lip service. Right. It genuinely is. Customer says they want something, and I'm seeing, I've never experienced it before. I'm seeing chat windows being exploded up. Okay, customers looking for this. How do we get that done? We're pulling engineers in. We're pulling product managers in. How can we get this out as quickly as possible? Because we're seeing this across the board. I've seen that with large organisations before, when you've got enterprise organisations asking for that. What I see here is it actually doesn't matter, right? You could be a commercial customer. You could be a consumer. If the idea is something that we can implement, you find it comes into product pretty quickly. So I think that race of innovation comes from that. It's listening to the customer, and it's really pushing that through to our product as quickly as possible to give people what they need.
Mm-hmm. And in terms of uptake, we saw this phenomenal uptake. Is the rate of uptake changing? So is the slight rate of uptake of video conferencing levelling off, and the rate of uptake of other things moving up? Is there any change there?
I'd say so. I think that it was always going to happen. Right? All of a sudden, the whole world needed to be on video. That was never going to be something that was a sustainable thing in terms of the growth of that. What we are seeing is, okay, we get video now. We understand how to use it. We're not embarrassed about being on it, which was a lot of what it was before. We trust our employees to be at home. So what now you're seeing is the uptake of phone, contact center, integrations, where it's like, okay, how do we actually push this out into all the other applications? So it's no longer about being stuck at home during COVID. It's about, I'm going to be on the road, right? I'm going to be in an office sometimes. I'm going to be, frankly, on the beach sometimes, and maybe I need to get some work done. How do I make sure that I'm contactable and in that kind of collaboration piece when I need to be? And it's not something where I'm having to race to a coffee shop or, race back to the office to get back online to speak to someone.
Got it. And where do you think the platform's going to go, or where do you think Zoom will go, perhaps in the immediate or more distant future? Because I have people asking me futuristic questions like, will we still have Zoom certified peripherals, or will Zoom somehow be a part of the display in the same way that a digital signage player doesn't need a media player? That was one thing that was suggested to me. I don't know. What do you think will be coming down the line in terms of what we can do?
So look, we partner up with a lot of hardware partners, right? Yeah. And there is a certification. We do want to make sure that obviously the software is running correctly across the platform of partners that we use, and we've got some partnerships across the board, whether that be, room systems, whether it be telephony, whether it actually be screens, whether it be, there was the partnership with Sky at one point. You've obviously got Tesla, where we're now building into their cars. So I do think you'll see that proliferation into multiple devices. Yeah. I think, interestingly for me, is what happens with true artificial intelligence. Where does that go? Where do you go with that metaverse type stuff? Yeah. And I say type stuff because I think everyone's trying to wrap their head around it at the moment of what does it actually mean? What could that actually look like? Where are the use cases where it's not just something where you're looking at going, well, it looks fun, but am I actually going to use it? Yeah. And I think that's how we spoke about video, frankly, many, many moons ago, right? So I think everyone's trying to look at that and say, okay, where are the next steps? Yeah. I don't think that's that far away.
Really?
I think the impetus of what happened during COVID means that everyone's minds have been open to really looking at what is the art of the possible. Yeah. And it really does bring in that diverse culture into it as well, right? So it doesn't matter if I can't get into the office for some unknown reason, right? Yeah. And even just day to day, right? I don't have to go to that shop to go and buy something. If I can't get in there for any reason, I can actually get there. You break down regions, right? You completely break down regions when you get into that. Your consumer base when you're local isn't just your local consumer base. It can now be widespread to wherever you are. So I think lots of interesting ideas. Definitely. Lots of people far cleverer than me trying to get into a room and figure out what's the art of the possible.
Well, ChatGPT seems to be the rage now.
Yes, it definitely does. That exploded somewhat.
I think the idea of us, parking our Teslas and hopefully they're parked and calling in. Although maybe you can you'll be speeding along, drive a lot with.
I don't think that would be a good idea. I would suggest to always park up before you do anything like that, personally. But yeah, I think the idea of you've stopped because of you're driving somewhere and you need to take a call for whatever reason, and stopping off and grabbing your coffee and having that call without having to fiddle around with your phone or whatever. I think, or I've seen me multiple times, right? Sat there at a service station with my laptop open, trying to figure out how I jump onto that call I need to do, having it straight from the car. I think it's a fantastic idea.
And the AI that you mentioned, that's already kind of already made some impact. You have things like automatic transcripts.
Yes.
And maybe even automatic. Some people are doing automatic translation as well.
That we are at the moment. So I, as an English person, love this. Right? We are well renowned for not being great at learning other people's languages. I idolise my daughter. It's becoming a lot better now. They're learning languages at school, but in chat and in our meetings, it's fantastic, right? And that whole thing of understanding who is the user, what is someone else's language they're talking to, and being able to turn that on and automatically being able to see those translations, for me, has been phenomenal. Yeah. It's been some of that stuff has been coming to fruition through our platform, which has been fantastic to see. Really good.
Okay. Well, I think the things that I've taken away from this are that, at this event, people are very interested in Zoom events, which perhaps people didn't know so much about.
Yeah.
And the next thing will be AI pretty soon, I think so.
Pretty much.
Okay. Well, Helen, thank you very much for joining us here.
Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you.
Thank you.